I almost said afternoon because we've been here for a while today. Good evening, everyone. I am Deborah Pasquarette, and I am the director of the Creative Aging Program here at the Wallis Sandberg Center for the Performing Arts. It is the best job in the universe. I am so lucky. I just told the students backstage, I won't say too much because I'll start crying, but they are literally the joy of my life. They pour their hearts, their minds, everything into their work, and they're going to give it back to you tonight. The people that are performing tonight, we started our program in 2019, the Creative Aging Program. There are students from 2019 all the way to students that just started this semester in Stage Stories 1. So everyone you see tonight either wrote their piece in a Stage Stories class or started something in a Stage Stories class and wrote it from there. We have memoir, which is kind of the meat of Stage Stories, but we also have, because when you get to Stage Stories 3, you have poetry and fiction as a possibility as well. So tonight you'll also hear some poetry and some fiction. I'm going to tell you, you're going to laugh, you're going to cry. It is better than Cats. And so I hope you sit back, relax, give yourself the gift of taking these stories into your heart and enjoying. And at the end of the show, we are going to have the cast is going to come out. We're going to do a group photo on the stage, and then they are going to go grab their stuff, and they will meet everyone in the lobby. Our Briskin bar will be open after the show, so they can meet you out there. So once we do the curtain call and everything, they'll go and get their photo, get their stuff, and then meet you out there, and we'll see you out in the lobby. And before I forgot my most important job tonight, to let you know to turn off your phones, please, all phones, and that the exits are the way you came in over here, and then on the opposite side over here. We have incredible staff here at the Wallis that are trained in case there was ever an emergency, but just so you know where the exits are, just for safety. So please sit back in your seat. And before anyone gets worried, there are not 31 people performing tonight. There are 18 people performing. We have we have a show tonight and a show tomorrow night, and I realize that some people they're like, oh my God, we're gonna be here till tomorrow. You're not. It's a great show that's a little compact show. You're gonna have a great time, and I want you to give a big round of applause for our first writer this evening, Ty.
When I was in my late 40s, I did a stand-up comedy routine at this club in Altadena called the Coffee Gallery. I did okay, all right? I wasn't great, I just did okay. But when I get off stage, in the front row was this older gentleman, salt and pepper beard, a short afro, with this big smile. And he pointed at me and said, you're a funny man. You are a funny man. His name was Leslie Perry, and he said he was a storyteller. I'm like, storyteller? What's that? What kind of stories do you tell? He said, I tell folk stories, children's stories, kind of stories you might find in a book. You should come to my show. I'm like, I didn't really want to hear any kid stories. I'll be honest with you. I thought it might be boring. But something told me to go, and I did. Leslie Perry is about 5'6", about 50 pounds lighter than me. But when he got on stage, he appeared 10 feet tall. His voice boomed out into the audience. His smile brightened up every inch of that theater. He was animated. He embodied the characters and the animals in the story. He captivated me. He got off stage. Right? I was like, hey, oh my God, dude, that was fantastic. Thank you. You should try storytelling. I'm like, no, you're the storyteller. I'm a comedian. No, you could do it. That evening, he inspired me. I wrote stories or ideas, and some of them were silly. I figured as much. Some of them were kind of boring. But I ended up developing this story, this emotionally charged story about me and my older daughter, about a relationship that wasn't so perfect. And he helped me write that story and edit it to a point where I was able to present it in an open mic. But it was so emotionally charged, guys, I wasn't ready. I stumbled, I stammered a lot, and I choked up a lot. And I'll be honest with you, I couldn't wait to get off stage. And if I remember right, there were quite a few people in the audience that couldn't wait for me to get off stage. But in the front row, Leslie Perry, that big smile. You're a funny man. You're a funny man. You're a great storyteller. And when you get that story worked out, it's going to touch a lot of people's heart. I don't know, man. So he became my mentor for storytelling. And we worked on a lot of things together. What's interesting enough, though, over the period of a year, he had gotten diagnosed with ALS. And his health deteriorated. And over a period of time, that big smile, that big energy he had began to slowly diminish until he and his big smile was no more. I struggled to tell stories after that. I kind of felt more comfortable doing stand-up, so I kind of left it alone. And about a month later, I found myself standing in the light bulb aisle at a Home Depot where I worked. When this lady I had never met before came walking down the aisle and stopped and stood right next to me. And after having a conversation about light bulbs and LED this, LED that, she paused and looked at me curiously and said, I have to tell you something, but I need your permission. I'm like, what? I have to tell you something, but I need your permission. I remember taking a step back, and I said, okay, go ahead. He says, you have this energy about you. It's this big, warm, welcoming energy, and I don't even know why I'm telling you this, but whatever you're doing, just keep doing it. It's going to be fantastic. Keep doing it. And I looked at her and I said, I was trying to be a storyteller for a while. She says, you know what? That makes sense. That's why I had to tell you this. You needed confirmation. You needed confirmation. I said, okay. And then she turned and walked away. That afternoon, I picked up those notes that I wrote about that story, which about me and my older daughter. And I was hanging out at the coffee gallery, had a chai tea, sitting at the table, when a friend of mine named Tom walks in. Tom gets an Earl Grey, he sits down next to me, and I begin to tell him about the day, about the woman at Home Depot and the conversation we had, right? He sips his Earl Grey and leans in and said, hey man, somebody's trying to get you a message. I'm like, what? Don't start. Don't start that. No, man, seriously, somebody's trying to get you a message. Who do you know who believes in you and wants you to be a great storyteller? Who do you know? You're a funny man. You're a funny man. You're a great storyteller. Message received. And now I'd like to introduce the lovely Gail.
Good evening. My name is Gail Gordon, and my piece is called The Heart of the Matter. A golden sheaf of multiple threads many colors, some entwined, others loosely dangling, affecting how a life will play out. Some thin and flimsy, others taut and thick, floating loosely, pulled and tugged, a little less here, a little more there. Some so heavy they threaten the sheaf, others so flimsy they might disappear. The central thread is the life force and the heart of the matter. It is thick and many-layered, but easily frayed by the whipping threads of know and be quiet, with its distant cousin, you are not good enough. And then, enmeshed in a chain of expectations, strands of heartache and loneliness are pulled so tightly, this central thread weeps and threatens to break. The energetic, joyful child wants to leap down flights of stairs and is silenced mid-air. The musician's daughter denied lessons because she might not be good enough. And the teenager told to not be a doctor because it will interfere with getting married, are choked by the many threads of desires tamped down. The young mother, whose loss and confusion are so great when her husband, wanting his youth and freedom, leaves, is pulled and tugged by the threads of loss of identity, released to nothingness. With no threads of support to grab, many bad decisions are born, creating new, interloping wannabe threads of a life of despair and destruction. And the main line of life force and heart, brutalized one too many times by grief and loss and sadness, at last, rather than succumb, pulls itself strongly in the center and bellows. It receives help to strengthen from many dormant strands with no previous room to breathe. The ones made up of hope, love, and self-compassion. This main thread is the one that holds firmly today. The strands binding it together shine brightly, while the others have faded away as the wind releases them, disappearing in the empty sky. And I'm happy to introduce our next reader, Diane.
Hi, everyone. My name is Diane. The title of my story is Men Will Be Men. This is a story about my wonderful husband of almost 60 years, who happens to be in the audience tonight. To this day, I remember the experience vividly. I was 27 years old. I had just arrived from Israel to Berkeley University to study for my PhD. And even though I had completed my 3-year compulsory military duty in Israel and my bachelor degree, I was actually quite naive. But certainly youth is often fearless. I was anxious to experience all that the United States had to offer. Never did I stop and think about what I was about to embark on, that it could be dangerous. It was a beautiful Sunday morning, unusually warm, unusually warm for September, and I was alone in my room. I knew very few people, had no plans for the day, and I was feeling a bit homesick. I happened to glance at the local free newspaper, and saw an advertisement for an open house at a nudist colony. Well, I thought to myself, that would be quite an experience. I didn't realize that it was about an hour and a half drive, and I was concerned that the car I had just bought for $350 could make it. But it did. I drove straight through the gate and walked up to the receptionist. She informed me that only couples were allowed. And despite my pleading and bargaining, she would not budge. Needless to say, I was very disappointed. As I exited the gate, I saw to my right a dirt road that seemed to run parallel to the grounds of the nudist colony. Without thinking, I just turned right and started to drive down. On the left side, there were just miles and miles of empty land with a few bushes scattered along the road. I don't remember how far I drove, but at some point I stopped my car under a bush and then started walking until I saw a fence that I thought I could climb. I undressed, hid my clothes under a rock, and climbed over. And if you're wondering, there was no barbed wire, so castration was not a worry. I heard laughter and sounds of splashing, so I headed in that direction, trying to look as nonchalant as possible. To my great excitement, I saw about 50 nude people hanging around the pool and in it. And because of my great excitement, I had to immediately jump into the water. And there I stayed for about an hour and a half, taking in every woman I could see. And let me tell you, I hadn't seen so many nude women in my lifetime. It began to get dark, and I knew it was time for me to leave. I walked over to the fence, climbed over, and then realized I had no idea where I had parked my car or hid my clothes. Here I am, a nude man, walking along a deserted dirt road, and it was getting dark. Thinking back on it, I can't quite remember how I was feeling, but I can only imagine. But I do remember having to walk for about 20 minutes, and then, to my great luck and surprise, I was able to find the rock, clothes, and my car. I gave my car a little push to get the engine started, something not unusual, and smiled all the way home. What could have been a boring and lonely day ended up to be an experience I never forgot. I am now in my late 80s, and this was in the 60s. I wonder if this happened now, and if I had been caught, would I have been shot? But I wasn't caught, and now, sometimes in the afternoon, when I am drifting off, I have wonderful memories of so many beautiful nude women. Thank you. And now I'm happy to introduce the lovely Linda.
Hi, I'm Linda, and I'm going to be reading Let's Twist Again, like we did last summer. I am from the hot sun, burning sand, and freezing salty water in the Long Island Sound. Sunburns from baby oil, foil reflectors to capture the sun, and itchy poison ivy and calming calamine lotion. I'm from meeting my mother after swimming lessons at Ocean Beach Park, at lifeguard station number 3, and enjoying my peanut butter and jelly sandwich sprinkled with sand. I'm from digging for clams with mud squishing between my toes and picking blueberries with fireflies at dusk and frogs chirping at night. I'm from miniature golf, taking pictures in a photo booth and winning tickets at skee ball at the Penny Arcade. I'm from spinning on the tilt-a-whirl and reaching for the brass ring at the merry-go-round. I'm from Friday night dances at the second floor of the GAM building and polka dances on the boardwalk with Dick Pilar's polka celebrations. Dancing to This Magic Moment, tears on my pillow, and let's twist again like we did last summer. I'm from having my first crush at 13 and keeping my eyes wide open during my first kiss, much to his surprise. I'm from going steady with Eddie and hanging out as teenagers on the wall to see and be seen. I'm from Sweet 16 parties at the Lighthouse Inn and enjoying clam chowder and delicious Maine lobster in this elegant restaurant. I'm from pledging to get into a high school sorority and learning how to smoke cigarettes to fit in. I'm from mini skirts and fake leather dresses and younger cousins that thought I looked like Twiggy. I'm from walking to the end of the boardwalk and making out with the water lapping in the background, enjoying boat rides and bonfires. I am from my short-lived job of cooking clam fritters and a summer waitressing at the Puritan Tea Room. I'm from Margrav's crunchy fried clams and Connecticut lobster rolls dripping with butter, Huey's for the garlicky love salad, Ocean Avenue pizza, crusty grinders stuffed with Italian meatballs or sausages, Michael's Dairy, creamsicles, and Tony May's ice cream truck. I'm from wanting to retire at the beach and never imagining it would happen. Almost 2 years ago, I moved from the East Coast to several miles from the Santa Monica beach, and that ocean breeze, halcyon days. And it's my pleasure to introduce Ellen, who'll be reading next. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Hello, I'm Ellen Spindell, and my story is called Aaron Katofsky and His Chihuahua. Aaron Katofsky arrived in Los Angeles on October 15th, 2017. His 12-hour flight from Finland was excruciating, but he was thrilled to be in LA because he enrolled in one of LA's international acting academies for a year's program. Now, he assumed he would be a famous actor after a year-long program because he was a prominent singer-songwriter in Helsinki. He was accompanied by his faithful companion, a Chihuahua, Hercules. The first time I met Hercules, I looked into his big brown eyes and I could see his soul. I called him a human puppy. He cuddled in my arms as if we were friends forever. Upon their arrival at LAX, Hercules was extremely disoriented. He was in unfamiliar territory, including the weather. They were both wearing warm coats and sweaters because it was winter in Finland. But it was 75 degrees in LA. Aaron stripped down to a t-shirt and jeans. Hercules just stripped down. The furry 7-pound dog began acting very weird. His home was the countryside, trees and grass, hills, other animals. He started spinning all around, and his eyes were rolling in the back of his head, shaking very nervously. He was having a major culture shock. It was as if he said to Aaron, "Where the hell am I?" Now, Hercules understood Finnish, but Aaron was speaking English. Hercules didn't know these words, not to mention all the noise and the traffic and the sirens. The little guy was so confused, he whimpered. Aaron held him gently, singing softly in Finnish, gave him the homeopathic dose of doggy rescue remedy, and Hercules finally calmed down. A car was waiting for them to take them to their new residence, a charming one-bedroom in Rustic Canyon, where Hercules found his perfect spot, in front of an atrium window looking out into a plush garden. Aaron started classes and loved the academy. Hercules loved it too, for all the attention he got. All the American students welcomed their global classmates. They became an instant family. Well, the year was closing in, and Aaron did not want to go back to Finland. He quickly learned that it's a process to be a working actor in Hollywood. But he loved LA. He loved the tumult. He loved the noise, the clubs, the auditions. Hercules, on the other hand, was ready to go. He told everyone in his doggy way, "It's enough already! Get me out of here!" It was obvious because he kept getting sick and biting and scratching his little paws. Poor little guy. Aaron and his worldwide family would meet quite often to figure out how to stay in the USA. Since no one got a job to sponsor them, they figured the next sensible idea was marriage. Not an easy task, since Homeland Security closely investigates all applications. However, Aaron got lucky. His good American friend John slyly asked him to marry him so he could get his green card. But we had to be quiet about this because John had a boyfriend, and if Homeland does not look too kindly at phony apps. What a combination of documents and lies. These are just white lies, Aaron said, so we can maintain polite social manners and courtesies. So, on July 5th, 2018, Aaron and John were married by a female reverend named Mary. Hercules was the best man. Shh. Thank you. I would now like to introduce Tony.
Hello, my name is Tony, and the title of my piece is called Mom's Funeral. Watching my mom die wasn't the end of my nightmare. I still had to plan her funeral alone, without my brother and only sibling, who had passed 6 years prior. Daddy had passed 21 years earlier, so I was left to make sure Mom's final memorial was up to the standards that she imposed on our family. My focus for the last year had been trying to prevent her death. Feeling helpless as I watched this vibrant, feisty woman fade away was like being trapped in a theater, watching a very bad movie that always got worse. The happy ending never came, and you felt cheated and defeated. I didn't have the luxury of screaming at the world, sinking into self-pity, wallowing in pain, and even sleeping a lot. I had to make sure that the best mom in the world got a proper send-off, befitting a truly remarkable, strong, and resilient woman who lived for 94 years. Needless to say, I was filled with dread. Gathering family and friends in August is difficult because August is a vacation month for many people. Certain cousins and close friends had obligations that couldn't be changed, so I had to find a time and a date that worked for every one of them. I absolutely needed them by my side because I knew my emotional and mental limitations. I couldn't and wouldn't say a final goodbye to Mom without them standing with me. Her funeral was scheduled for 9 a.m. I couldn't sleep the night before because I was worried about certain family members being late or the programs and flowers not being delivered on time. However, when we arrived at the parking lot of the funeral home, I saw the most beautiful sight. My cousins, my friends, and Mom's baby sister, Rhea, were getting out of their cars simultaneously. They had all arrived at the same time. Watching them hug and kiss each other brought me so much peace and joy. The dread melted away. This horrible movie had a happy ending after all. Transfixed, I sat in the car, joyfully watching them greet each other until my daughter Tiana broke the spell and reminded me that we weren't the only funeral and we had a very limited time for Mom's service. As I walked into the chapel, I felt surrounded by love. There were people that I hadn't seen in decades. Mom had been retired for 31 years, but her coworkers showed up. My childhood neighbor was there. People I never expected to speak marched to the podium and gave lovely tributes to Mom. The daughter of a lifelong friend of my mom's spoke of growing up, watching her mom and my mom be best friends, and how she learned, like I did, to value relationships. Everything came together so beautifully. There were a few tears, but lots more laughter. Mom got the send-off she so deserved. Thank you. Thank you. And now I would like to introduce Victoria.
Thanks, Tony. Hi, everybody. I'm Victoria Kemsley. Pantyhose. I've had my knee replaced and my hip replaced, not to mention 70 years of not being very flexible in the first place. These days, putting on pantyhose feels like shoving a giraffe through the eye of a needle, only less graceful and with more swearing. I have to conscript my husband to help me, poor guy. No man should have to see the putting on of the pantyhose at the best of times. I mean, it is one thing to sit back and watch while a beautiful young woman puts one beautiful young leg into a silk stocking, smoothing it over perfectly shaved, varicose veinless skin, and effortlessly hitching it to a lacy garter. It is quite another for a man to have to wrestle that damn second foot of yours into the second leg of one's hose, while the gusset stretches inelegantly between your legs and you hang onto his back shouting, "Don't use your fingernails!" It wasn't always that way. ... I loved driving when I was younger. From the time I got my license, the freedom to go anywhere by myself was the best. I would volunteer to drive anything. On a farm in Alberta? Sure, I'll drive the dump truck to the wheat field. School bus through the Kootenay Mountains? Done. Forklift? Anytime. Scissor lift? Cherry picker? Golf cart? I'm on it. I drove the freeways of California like I skied the mountains of British Columbia. I drove fast, weaving in and out confidently, and truly believed there should be a black diamond lane for great drivers like myself. Now, while it's pretty typical for a busy woman to maybe take out the mascara at a stoplight or touch up the lipstick, my particular brand of braggadocio took it a step further. In my 30s, I was multitasking, going to school, working out, catering, auditioning, and all on the run. From time to time, I needed to change my ensemble on the way, whilst driving. Usually, it was just a matter of slipping one shirt off and another on. I didn't worry about my brief nakedness. I reassured myself that my fellow rush hour drivers weren't looking at me anyway. Mostly, I thought, who cares? I'll never see these people again. The moment of my single greatest triumph in this arena, though, was one day on the 101 freeway at rush hour. I didn't have time nor place to transform at my next destination. The gig, whatever it was, required a full transformation. Makeup, naturally. One-handed hairdo, back comb, bobby pinned and sprayed for a little style. A full outfit change was required. Pantyhose was required. Granted, the traffic was stop and go, I'll give you that. But with a professional level of skill and determination, I changed my blouse, switched out the accessories, including pierced earrings put on with the aid of elbow steering, zipped up a new skirt, and finally squabbled with my pantyhose. As I rode the brake, accelerator, I was 100% ready when I stepped out of the car. Voila. So nowadays, when I am sitting on the floor of my bedroom screaming at my sweet husband to scrunch the hose like a curtain, damn it, not yank it up like a sweat sock, my mind goes back to those halcyon days when I would peek at the Thomas Guide, wrestle pantyhose, and work the gas pedal, all while belting out a Bruce Springsteen anthem. I miss the feeling of being invulnerable. Don't you? Thank you. Thank you. And now it's a pleasure to introduce the next writer, Dick.
My name is Dick Johnson, and my piece is entitled, I Remember Joy. I remember the day I met Joy. It was, appropriately enough, Valentine's Day in 1983. I went to her office to determine her software requirements for the computer system she'd purchased from my company. I remember how stunned I was by her beauty and intelligence. She knew exactly what she wanted the system to do. She was also a master of effective listening. By the end of our conversation, she knew as much about me as I did about her software needs. I remember Joy accepting my offer to create the software she needed, working evenings in her office while I continued my day job. That fit her preferred work schedule, which was noon to 8 or 9 in the evening, and it worked for me because I'd have time with her, something I had ardently desired. I remember how our conversations would start with our software needs, but somehow always became about our lives. I remember the 6 weeks it took to complete our software, weeks in which we progressed from business acquaintance to friends to lovers, beginning an affair that would last for 35 years. I remember our first trip together, La Jolla over Labor Day weekend. I remember sitting on the beach exchanging life stories, she growing up in a farm in eastern Oklahoma, working in restaurants and J.C. Penney's to earn enough to escape from abusive father, leaving home for California the week after high school graduation, and starting her transformation from a small-town farm girl into a successful and cosmopolitan businesswoman. I remember how she embraced my daughters as though they were her own. I remember 35 years of working and playing together. I remember our business ventures, how our skills worked so well together. I remember the travel we enjoyed, to Hong Kong on business, to England and France on walking tours, cruises to Alaska and Mexico, skiing in Whistler and Aspen. I remember the first hints of Alzheimer's affecting her cognition. She stopped going to the office every day and began depending on me to handle more and more of her business needs. I remember the progression of her symptoms over the next 5 years. I remember the beginnings of her aphasia and the day when she completely lost the ability to form any words. I remember how grateful I was that she still recognized me. I remember the day when I realized I needed someone to assist with her care, to be with her when I had to be out of the house. I remember the day when a massive stroke put her in the hospital and then into hospice. I remember hospice calling me 5:20 in the morning before Thanksgiving 2018 to tell me Joy had passed. I remember her memorial. Over 200 mourners, family, friends, and business associates came to honor and say goodbye to this wonderful woman. I will always remember Joy. No one was more aptly named. Thank you. And now I would like to present the very lovely Catherine.
Hi, I'm Catherine, and I'm writing a book. This is from the beginning, and it is based on a true story. The title of this piece is called The Past 17 Years. They were supposed to come for the body, his people. I've been told for 17 years that if anything happened to him, they'd come. I was to do nothing. But where were they? My fiance's body had been decomposing in the July heat for almost 2 weeks on a public street in the upscale neighborhood of Pacific Palisades, rotting in my SUV where I had left it 12 days ago. 2 weeks earlier, I had driven Bob to the Santa Monica Bristol Farms for chicken soup, the only food he would eat at that time. My assistant, Cassie, was with us. As I was coming back from the store with his soup, Cassie shouted from the car, "Catherine, hurry, come here. Something's wrong with Bob." I ran to my car and found Bob struggling to breathe. I called my ex-husband, Trey, to come help. He lived nearby, and he'd know what to do. For years, I've been given strict instructions not to call 911. I was assured Bob's people was always nearby and they'd be there immediately if anything were to happen to him. Trey brought his medical kit, he's a dentist, and used his ambu bag, an artificial respirator, to try to revive him. We tried. After an hour, Trey put his fingers under Bob's nostrils and shook his head. We sat in stunned silence. "Isn't someone supposed to come for his body?" my assistant Cassie asked. "They'll be here," I said. We drove back to Pacific Palisades, waiting for them to show up, but no one contacted us. In the early hours of July 4th, 2015, I decided to leave Bob's body in my car in front of my house so they could find him. Trey went home. Cassie decided to leave with me in her car, and we just drove north. I had been told for 17 years they'd come for him. I became an expert at hiding things in plain sight the past 17 years. I hid hundreds of guns, boxes of ammo, cash, and various weapons in Bob's SUVs, garages, and my home. My long blonde hair and Gallagher accent and knowledge of misdirection threw off any suspecting neighbors, security companies, even police as I moved equipment in and out of places for Bob. Anything to help him with his missions. So it was natural for me to hide Bob's body in plain sight until his staff contacted me. But they didn't. When I'd heard nothing for 12 days, I returned to LA, expecting he'd be gone. Trey agreed to come with me to check to see if Bob's body had been removed. At first, we couldn't see anything as we drove by. We slowed down and then pulled over. I walked toward the car, and then I saw it, his shin peeking out from under the blanket. And then the stench hit me. I vomited, holding myself up on the car. Fuck! Why is he still here? How am I ever going to explain my fiance's body rotting in my car? I had followed directions. I had done everything I was told for the past 17 years. Catherine, Trey yelled, get back here. I hobbled over to his car. We have to call a lawyer now. And now I'd like to introduce you to the beautiful Cindy.
Good evening. My name is Cindy Rucker-Trost, and I'm going to be reading for you 4 poems that are part of a collection that I call Bonne Nuit, les Bêtes Noires, which is Good Night, Dark Beast. Threshold. There is a place, an in-between space, invisible and recondite, separating beginning from end, forward from backward, aspiration from actualization. It gives rise to anxiety and faith, trepidation and hope, acceptance and denial. A perpetual state, inescapable, enduring, till life crosses over into death. Threshold. The tears I cry at night. Silent, secret tears created in a dark place, stored in a deep well that never runs dry. Heavier and more sticky than the tears of joy or the tears from a good laugh. Tears I cry at night, they pull in my eyes till gravity pulls them down my cheeks. A hot spring of agony and anguish, angst and anger seeps into my pillow. A basin dry by morning bears witness, but leaves no trace of the tears I cry at night. Good night, dark beasts. Like unsettled souls of the dead in search of a grave, dark, shadowy memories wander restlessly through my mind. I find no peace in the theater of sleep. Nightmares, memories, cousin, haunt my dreams. Homicide. Suicide? Can I help you? His words interrupt my rumination. I need some flowers. Are they for a special occasion? a funeral. He offers white lilies. I'll take the yellow tulips. Tonight, I embrace my dark beasts and invite them to lie down with me. In my chapel of rest, one by one, I kiss them goodnight. Good night to the abuser who locked me in a room. Good night to the rapist who defiled me under the moon. Good night to the cheater who broke my heart. Good night, Mother. It's time we part. St. Augustine whispers to me, give your angels charge over those who sleep. I put tulips under all the pillows. Then I set fire to the house. This last piece I'm reading is a sonnet, and it's called All She Ever Wanted Was to Be Loved. Born into poverty and dysfunction, all she ever wanted was to be loved. Dry ink confirmed her adoption was done. Please let them like me, she begged God above. Shh, don't tell, he bade her for a decade, till a boy came along and whisked her away. They wed, had babies, her life a charade. Cheatings and beatings, again, love betrayed. Her heart hardened as her hair grew snow white. Her kids estranged, she visits YouTubers and asks the dog, what's for dinner tonight? With her last breath, she damns her abusers. At her funeral, they released white doves, and some mourners said nice things, just because. And now I'd like to welcome to the stage Mary.
Hello, my name's Mary, and my story this evening is called Born in Yorkshire. Any person born in Yorkshire in the north of England belongs to a tribe of good people that stubbornly live by the code. Genuine loving feelings are only expressed through acts of kindness, through loyalty, and awkward embraces. You do not voice or speak of them to one another. This lifelong legacy, this special embedded gene, defined my close relationship with my brother Martin. 30 years of living separate lives on different continents, Australia and the US, did not change this. The first hints of serious illness surfaced in phone calls. I was concerned, suspicious. How ill are you? What did the doctor say? He was not convincing. I booked my flight, he would meet me on arrival. I searched the lounge for him, he was late. The sheer boredom of waiting led me to scrutinize the other people around me. Slowly, I felt a creeping, alarming recognition that the gaunt, fragile, skeletal old man sitting 3 benches in front of me was indeed my brother Martin. I quickly transformed my paralysis and feelings of despair to a smiling mask of false delight. Hey, sorry, didn't see you. Waiting long? By my next visit, he was in hospital, about to transfer to hospice care for his final months. I would not be there. Each day, the pressure of leaving him, the burden of following the Yorkshire code grew heavier. I was torn, conflicted. Could I be my true self? Speak to Martin of death, dying, love? Would my words cause pain, distress? Was I being cruel, selfish? Sitting alone with him the day before my flight home, I finally found the courage, my honest voice, my words. I'm so sorry, Martin. So sorry this is happening to you. I have to tell you, thank you for being my big brother, for protecting and helping me. Remember South Africa? God, you can make me laugh at anything. He had a wicked, wicked sense of humour. Damn it, you've been there all my life. I'm going to miss you. I love you so much. He resisted, of course. What are you saying that for? Then, making a seismic shift, he held me close and whispered, I know, Mary, I know. And I'm happy to introduce the next writer, Dan.
Hi, my name is Dan Oliverio, and I'll be reading A Life in a Day. Jackson only came into the store to get out of the rain. It wasn't the sort of place he would have entered ordinarily, and he pulled at his wet shirt. Can I help you find something today? He was caught off guard. He had come to hide, not to seek. Maybe an umbrella? It's really coming down out there. Hopelessly soaked, he turned his attention to the young man, so determined to be helpful. Came out of nowhere, am I right? And then he smiled, real big. He couldn't have been more than 25. Bright-eyed and mercilessly good-looking. Jackson didn't know whether he wanted to kiss him or punch him. Jackson had always credited such exuberance to stupidity. Forgivable in youth, but so desperately sad in someone his age. Jackson had always been his age. Even as a boy, he wore his cynicism like age makeup, and as if adolescence were a school play, and his role was the acerbic corporate attorney, which he would one day play professionally. He'd made partner before he was 40, and took a lover to celebrate. Jackson never worried about attracting men. He got his way in and out of court, and what he couldn't have, he made excuses not to want until it wasn't worth wanting anymore. We have some new polos in and some fitted button-downs if you want to get out of that wet shirt. Jackson narrowed his eyes. It's Armani. He saw the young man's face fall like a wounded toddler. I'm sorry. I'm not myself today, Jackson lied. You remind me of someone you don't like. I'm quite the opposite, actually. I knew him many years ago in law school. He's a lawyer? Jackson resisted the urge to pounce. No, he quit in our third year. Said it wasn't for him. Oh. Jackson stared at the boy. His naivete was strangely compelling. Jackson always hated naivete, but somehow not today. Are you happy? Jackson's question surprised himself as much as the clerk. I'm sorry, you look happy. Are you? Yeah, I guess. Why wouldn't I be? Jackson contemplated this, and portals began to open in his mind. Tyson's smile, their last kiss, and helping him pack to leave law school. Jackson's liaisons with so many successful men that dotted his rise to success. The fight with his current lover, who locked him out of their apartment and told him through the door that it was over. The meandering walk in the summer downpour, and the young man, too beautiful to ignore, offering the refuge of an umbrella. In their imaginary future together, in some farmhouse in Hudson Valley where Jackson painted and his young lover cooked, and the two of them traveled until the lad was in tears, having the trust read that left him everything after the memorial service, where no one remembered any of Jackson's legal victories. Only the young man's tears. Right, Jackson said. Why wouldn't you be? And now I'd like to introduce our next writer, Rita.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rita Lefkowitz, and the title of my piece is Pilfering Toilet Paper for Barbie. I learned a lot about life from Barbie. She wasn't my first toy, but she was my favorite for far longer than was socially acceptable. I hated lifelike baby dolls that cried and peed, shed tears, wet diapers, and you had to actually take care of them. I didn't want to take care of things. I wanted to create, and I wanted to go places. Barbie was different. She was gorgeous, and she was a doll with a future. She had a dazzling amount of career options and endless budding opportunities. This stunning 5-inch plastic doll could do anything she wanted. That was a novel idea when I was young. She had a white doctor's coat with a realistic stethoscope, a Navy stewardess outfit with matching hats and gloves, even astronaut and police uniforms. It was 1959, and there were very few women that had broken the glass ceiling like Barbie did. This girl was going places. This doll had potential and prospects, and all with accessories to match. She had dream houses, exotic cars. She had a dog, she had a cat, and she even had Ken, and he smiled all the time. My parents were careful with money. I got a Barbie, but her wardrobe was completely my problem. I solved that problem with something that was cheap, abundant, and readily available. Toilet paper became my medium and my go-to fashion fabric. I crafted flowing white dresses and elegant, stylish gowns for my new muse in that medium. I trimmed and adorned my gowns with real flowers, leaves in all stages of nature's colors, and when I was lucky, I was graced with scraps that my mother had left over from her mending work that she took home for extra money. Barbie's dresses were lined with grass, yellow daisies, pasted on rocks that looked like jewels, and also mixed with scraps of very expensive fabrics. Her accessories were braided with twigs and leaves and safety pins and pieces of real leather that my father would spare from the work he took home for extra money at the handbag factory he labored in. There was never, ever enough toilet paper while I was growing up because I felt absolutely no guilt in using as much as I wanted. I had no conscience. My family would have to find something else to wipe with. I left paper towels and tissues when the roll was finished, but they complained incessantly. They missed that toilet paper. Even they knew that nothing worked as well and was as pliable as that magic paper on their delicate derrieres. I still have a certain reverence and secret knowing of the capabilities of this versatile article. I was on a roll. Well, many roles. And yet I didn't know I was onto something so creative. I just knew I had to work with what I had on hand and improvise the rest. I found something that was cheap, plentiful, and wonderful, that served me well. Barbie was a childhood dream come true. I created scenarios for her that mirrored movies and melodramas of the 60s. She became the heroine of great stories and wonderful adventures. She even played a poor immigrant girl from Europe, badly dressed, with parents that escaped the Nazis to come to America and became a successful fashion designer. And now allow me to introduce the next wonderful writer, Jade.
Hi, I'm Jade, and the name of my story is Dull Gray Sweats. I never keep a piece of clothing, shoes, and or purse past 6 months if I haven't used it. This way my closet never gets crowded, nor does my mind. I remember going to the discount store because I needed to purchase 2 items, oversized dull gray sweatpants and sweatshirt, and I didn't want to spend a lot of money on them. Why did I need these, you ask? I was about to enter the world of Barca loungers in the chemo room at Cedars Tower Oncology. Also believing I could do everything on my own, I didn't tell anyone about my upcoming venture. But one day, I was speaking to my sister, spelled S-I-S-T-A, and the translation means a very close friend, and accidentally slipped in my conversation about an upcoming oncology appointment. She said, "What? Huh?" and then proceeded to ask me a million questions. I was then forced to answer all of them. Later that day, I received a group email from my closest friends that I was no longer in charge, nor was I allowed to give my opinion. They took over and became my bully buddies. On my first day of chemo with a port in my right arm, wearing my oversized dull gray sweatpants and sweatshirt from the discount store, we all walked in. I thought the nurses were going to be upset, but they really were fine and wanted to join in on the party. My sisters had food, drinks, blankets, games, books, and their fabulous personalities. Over the next 5 hours, I was so entertained that I didn't realize I was really getting sick and felt like shit. I was driven home and they took turns watching over me. When I was almost through with my chemo treatments, my bully buddies decided that Jade can now start going back to her normal life. No, not making decisions, but exercising, so they created the Bully Buddies Chemo Walking Group. They all made me feel so protected, and I laughed that I progressed rapidly. I have no idea what I would have done without them, and to this day, they are still all my sisters. I am so grateful and lucky. And yes, the only thing I have left from my chemo days are my sisters and my oversized dull gray sweatpants, which always reminds me of how very precious life is. And now I'd like to introduce Eileen.
Good evening. My name is Eileen, and the title of my story is What I Meant to Say. 18-year-old Paul Levine from down the street tells me he will give me some beer if I give him a blowjob. I don't know what a blowjob is, but I want the beer. So I say yes. What I meant to say is, I am 12 years old. And I don't know why you're asking me this, but I want the beer. I am on a trip to Lake Arrowhead with my B'nai B'rith Girls chapter, of which I am president. How that happened, I have no idea, but I am leading a very double life. I wander off by myself and start flirting with the parking lot attendant, who takes me to his house, where we drink and end up in bed. We fuck. And I bleed. What I meant to say is, I'm a 15-year-old virgin, but I say nothing because things have progressed this far and I'm drunk and I don't want to disappoint. I never see him again. I run away to a commune in eastern Washington with a guy whose name I don't remember. Truly, one of the dumbest decisions of my life. What I meant to say is I don't want to live on a godforsaken farm, but I go anyway. He leaves me after a week on the farm. I end up living in an apartment in Spokane with this very weird couple. The wife exchanges sexual favors for other favors from a much older man. She asks me if I want a go. I say yes because there are things that I need. He asks me what I want. I suppose I could have said a car, but I say I want a fifth of vodka, a carton of Marlboro Reds, and $20. What I meant to say is, I'm 19, and you're a disgusting old man, but I don't, because I want the goods. I am a teenage alcoholic. No is rarely part of my vocabulary. I get sober at 24, but it takes a long time for me to change my modus operandi, mainly in the area of sex. I find that drinking is not necessary for me to degrade myself. I aspire to low self-esteem. I finally get to the anger stage where I am able to say, "Get your fucking hands off me," and I mean it. This does not last forever, but it is what it takes to break the spell. I am now an old lady. I almost always say what I mean and mean what I say. And if I don't do it immediately, I always call back to say what I mean to say. The path to redemption for some of us takes a very long time. And I have forgiven my 12 and 15 and 19-year-old selves. At 71, I have assumed full ownership of my person, and it feels damn good. I would like to introduce our next wonderful writer, Bruce.
My name is Bruce Schroffel, and the piece I'm going to read is called A Holiday Tradition. On a cold, blustery November day, two high school buddies bumped into each other on Montgomery Street in the heart of San Francisco's financial district. They had so much to catch up on, they decided that they should get together for lunch much closer to Christmas. I mean, after all, it was 22 years since they had graduated from Lincoln High School in San Francisco's middle-class Sunset District. Word of the holiday lunch got around quickly, and suddenly there were 16 guys who wanted to attend. And Orsi's Italian restaurant, a favorite of lawyers and bankers in San Francisco, was a perfect fit. Their wine cellar was a private room just right to accommodate the crowd. And the lunch was so much fun, everyone decided, hey, this should become an annual event. And so, the Lincoln Class of '55 Men's Club was born. Well, around 1980, word of the lunch reached me here in LA, and making the journey to my hometown immediately became a holiday ritual for me. As the years went on, we attracted more and more guys. Soon we were up to 45 classmates. We outgrew San Francisco restaurants, and we moved to the San Francisco Yacht Club on Belvedere Island, where we had a private room and we could get as rowdy as we pleased. I mean, it's hard to believe that many of the guys who are luncheon regulars go back to junior high school together. Some go back to grammar school, and a few of these guys even go back to kindergarten together. While all of us who attend the lunch were not necessarily friends or even friendly with each other in high school, we all share a common bond. We were all in the same place at the same time during this wonderful, terrible, and pivotal chapter in our lives. And with every year that passes, we grow increasingly aware and grateful that we grew up during the best time ever in the United States, the 50s. The country was at peace, the economy was booming, and there was a great sense of American optimism in the air. And in the early years, the dress for the lunch was usually sport coats and ties. Now it's sweaters, jeans, and punctuated with an occasional walker and a cane. Our format's always the same: first cocktails, then lunch. We toast those who aren't with us. Then we go around the room and bring each bring each other up to date on our lives. In the early years, the talk was of careers, wives, and kids. Then came career changes, divorces, and getting married. And lately, well, it's grandkids, great-grandkids, staying healthy, and trying to remember the name of a movie we saw. No politics, but terrible jokes are encouraged. 18 years ago, we lost our first regular attendee. We wondered what we might do to honor our classmate, a junior high school principal from Northern California. I suggested we all toss a couple of bucks into the hat and see that some deserving student graduating from our alma mater gets a few dollars, maybe enough to buy some books. Well, the idea took hold. To date, we've raised more than $125,000 and awarded scholarships to 27 deserving kids. We agreed to keep the luncheon going on as long as there are two guys who can get together and raise a glass to the class of '55. Last guy out, turn out the lights. Tomorrow at 3:45, I will be on Southwest Flight 1059 to San Francisco. You see, this Thursday is our 50th annual lunch. Yes, 50th. A holiday tradition I simply cannot miss. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And now I would like to introduce the fabulous Phyllis.
Hi, I'm Phyllis. Fabulous Phyllis. Well, will he kill me? So far, the name of my piece is The Neighbor, The Secret, The Holiday. Will he kill me? So far he hasn't, but you never know. When it's 2 a.m. and he's building shelves in his apartment, can I knock on his door and say, "What the fuck are you doing? I'm trying to sleep." I have murderous thoughts of attacking him, but I know he would kill me first. So I let it pass. When his tools are left all over the place in the carport, can I then tell him to go fuck himself? He is the only person in the building that is a pain in the ass, and everyone is afraid of him because you never know how it will end. What about when Amazon leaves 45 packages in front of his door and you have to step around them to get to the stairway? Do I then say, "Go fuck yourself"? It ends when either he moves out or I'm ready to move into the motion picture home. Now, that's a thought that can kill me. Calabasas? That's way too close to the Kardashians. Talking about secrets, was I? I don't think I have any, but I do have a secret. Although I complain about the 10 pounds I've gained during COVID and how I eat so little to lose weight, the dirty little secret is the package of peanut butter chocolate candies I have in the freezer. And I eat 1, 2, 3, even 4 after dinner because a girl needs her sweets. Shh, the secret is to keep buying larger size garments. Thank God for Amazon and those 2-day deliveries. Most people take a holiday, but can I go on holiday? The answer is I can't. I have no time. I'm too busy watching what the neighbor will do next to bug the shit out of me. And now I would like to introduce my friend Doc.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Doc Farnsworth, and my story's name is Tallulah. Gather round and step right up, ladies and gents, for the experience of a lifetime. For just one thin quarter, you can not only see the eighth wonder of the world, but look upon the other seven as you gaze in awe on the pulchritudinous splendor of Tallulah, the totally tattooed lady from Timbuktu. As the rubes lined up outside the tent, money in hand, Esther rose from her stool, carefully laying aside her dog-eared copy of Ovid's Metamorphoses in the original Greek, donned her wig, and adjusted her costume. Hell, the girls in the girly show 2 tents down wore more, but they only got a dime a look. And they didn't have their likeness painted on canvas 12 feet high over the midway. Esther owned the entire midway, and Tallulah was just along for the ride. And what a ride it had been. Esther was the eldest of 8 children, born to a hard-scrabble farmer and his withered wife, just outside of Marion, Ohio. People in town were amazed that such a beautiful young lady could be so smart. Everyone thought she would actually go to teacher college on a scholarship. But then there'd been the fire. No one would ever know how it started. Esther had been at a Future Teachers of America meeting at the high school. Walking home, she looked up to see an orange glow in the dark where her home and family were supposed to be. She broke into a run, leaving her books scattered in the dirt. The small crowd standing in the front yard, futilely passing buckets back and forth from the well, never saw her as she streaked past them into the inferno. Of her parents and siblings, she was the only survivor. It was widely surmised that the only reason that she had lived was that one last bucket of water had divinely drenched her just before she ran in. Then there were the agonizing months in the hospital, and the 3 years where her physical pain diminished as her mental pain slowly sapped the spirit from her being. As she sat in the darkest corner of the local watering hole, nursing an on-the-house beer, a tall stranger came up and stood before her. "Looks like life dealt you a hard hand, little lady. How would you like to turn that 8-high hand into a royal flush?" Phil, the artist, Esther, the canvas. Seas of scar tissue became the Battle of Trafalgar, the Great Pyramids of Giza. The Leaning Tower of Pisa leaned provocatively over Esther's cleavage towards the Eiffel Tower. Her scarred face beneath the flowing blonde wig, an astonishing replica of the Mona Lisa. Tallulah was born. For most, life is an endless series of incremental changes. For Esther, it had been one of transcendental reincarnations. Phil affectionately patted her Great Wall of China. "Go get 'em, beautiful." Esther smiled fondly at her husband before striding out into the lights. The rubes, as one, gazed in awe. And now I would like to invite all of our wonderful writers out for one last hand.